How we doing today, folks? Welcome back. Today's video is titled A Battle of Wills, and it's going to touch upon, or dive in deeper, I should say, what I spoke on yesterday, which was the greatest pandemic, which is the grotesque accumulation of centralized power. So, which is centralized power? Because one, it's one thing that never dies, and two, the centralization of power, in whichever form, has led to the greatest evils in human history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read down points, I'm going to quickly explain them, and I'm going to try to get through the end here as quick as I can. So, a battle of wills. So the first point is the will of changing human nature versus the will to have better morals. So, with Western countries that tend to be more liberty-minded, right? Like, let's say the United States versus China. Let's make this easy for us. And with China, with those that are on the side of that believe collectivism, you know, a government much like China's, that collectivism is the better way for people to be governed. They believe they have one of two views when it comes to human nature. That human nature is malleable, and if they believe that human nature is malleable, then they believe that they have a duty to change human nature, or that they're able to change human nature by force or by will towards what they feel is good. Or if they think that human nature is naturally good, well, now human nature is naturally good to what they think is good, and so now what they're going to try to do is accumulate a bunch of power within a government, so that they can force upon their good to others and force others to do what they feel is good. On the flip side, though, with countries such as the United States, we realize that there's so much evil that comes out of, and so much evil that has come out of trying to force people to do what we think is good, or what actually is good. So what people with, that's more liberty minded believe that human nature is static. Human nature doesn't change. Human nature is not malleable. I would be much different when it comes to my morals and my values if I grew up in the Roman era than now, because luckily morality has just improved so much since then. But we believe that morality can change, morality can improve, and thus our society can improve, and how we treat each other and how we act can improve. But our natural state of being, actually inclined towards selfishness, we believe is always the same. I think, as we see, which is most obvious in children, which is why we have to teach children to be good. It doesn't mean children can't do good things, but they need to be taught to continually do good things, and why things are good and why certain things are bad. Moving on. This really comes down to, in pertinence to the United States and China, comes down to Maoism versus Locke, or a Lockean school of thought. So Maoism and Marxism are pretty similar. Basically, in Maoism, it's the peasantry, and Marxism, it's the working class or the laborers. But that, it's deeper than that. But just to be general for now, so Mao believed that human nature was malleable. You could change it. Locke, so therefore he felt like if he could change the wills of all these peasants, he can now use that to start a revolution and take over the government. It worked. Having said that, it's not because he changed the wills of all these people. Actually, what he did was he just tapped into the worst parts of human nature, which is he just played on their selfishness and played on how people are naturally inclined to do bad and to be selfish, because it's easier. It's easier to do the wrong thing in life. But on the flip side, Locke and the Lockean school of thought believe that human nature is actually more inclined to be selfish or amoral, which is why we need to have morality, and which is why we need to continue this over time and build upon it, so we can continue to teach our kids so they can build upon morality and make a better, continually progress towards making a better society. But society will never be perfect, because humans are not perfect, because human nature at the end of the day is naturally selfish. So I had a point here. It says accepting that human nature is naturally amoral with the inclination to act selfishly, and that it's unchangeable, is the first step to realizing that an accumulation of too much power anywhere will always lead to tyranny. So once we realize that human nature cannot be changed by force and is static, but morality can change, that's when we can come to a firm conclusion that well, if humans are not, naturally good, if human will cannot naturally change, then we can't trust a collectivist government to do what's best for everybody, or to let everyone be free to their own devices to live their life the best way they see fit. So whether through violence or voting, once power is seized, it is not easily stripped away, because coercion will be used to keep that power. So let's say for Mao, whether Mao had been voted in, which he wasn't, he murdered a crap load of people to get power, but whether Mao had been voted in or attain power the way he did through violence, either way, he was now going to use coercion. He was now going to use violence in order to keep that power, because he felt like he was doing his people a service by now trying to force what he felt was good human nature, good human will upon others, and to force them to be to have a good nature, so to speak, which obviously is evil and led to a lot of evil. So this is especially true depending on the level of power and amount of coercion any person or group of people have. So let's say you're not gonna start a violent revolution against your boss. I mean, you can, you'll go to jail, but you're not going to do that. Having said that, in America, where we have a Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment especially, if the federal government gets way too big to the point where it's just infringing upon our rights, and it's no longer the America that, it no longer really looks like the America that the Founding Fathers had envisioned, then that is something where, because of the massive amount of power that this federal government has, where would come to a violent outbreak. And that's far down the line, but I'm just saying, just trying to show the difference between the two, between the levels of power, the levels of coercion that come with a greater power. Humans cannot be forced to do good, but taught to do good. So if you are trying to force someone to do what you think is good, then you are actually just using the worst parts of your human nature, which is selfish, which is derived from that natural selfishness. And what's funny is people that are more liberty-minded realize that we want people to be good and to do good and to have good morality, but we know that it's evil to force them to do so or to coerce them into doing so. We have to do it through persuasion, not through force. Those who believe in a more collectivist mindset think the opposite. They think either obviously people are naturally good, and so we have to force those that are bad to be good, to act good at least, or that human nature is malleable, once again, and so we can, through force and our own will, change their nature. The very want to force people to do good as you see fit is evidence that human nature is naturally inclined to selfishness. Once again, if you want to force people to be what you feel is good, that's naturally selfish. That is showing the fallenness of man, basically, the imperfections of human nature, and why it's naturally immoral and naturally selfish. The person who believes people are naturally good or whose nature is malleable through force will seek to bring out their concept of good by any means necessary. So whenever we've seen this mindset of that, this faith in collectivism, right? Regardless of which one of the two options they had for what they or two schools of thought they had for human nature, on that side of the spectrum, they've always used force and coercion in order to get their way. Basically, you saw this in Hitler's Germany. You saw this in Stalin's USSR. You saw this in China's Mao Zedong's China, and you even saw this under FDR, where he used coercion to put Japanese into internment camps, which was way unconstitutional and way against Western morality. But it shows that even though he had Western morals largely, his human nature kicked in, and he did, and he caged up a bunch of Japanese Americans and Japanese immigrants, and he did the wrong thing and thinking he was doing the right thing. He did what felt was good, not what was actually good. And get to the last point. The person who believes people are naturally inclined to selfishness will seek to bring about good through persuasion, knowing that trying to do so through coercion or force is evil. So those who are more liberty-minded, they believe that human nature is naturally selfish, and believe that we need to teach morality. They know that it's evil to try to force people to believe in what we believe, to believe in that in objective moralities, to believe in our view on human nature. And we know that we get those natural pings of wanting to shake someone's head and tell them what's right and what's wrong. But unlike those who believe in collectivist governments, we know that's wrong. We understand that you cannot have a good ends by evil means. That's why the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So folks, I hope this kind of gives you really good overview of at the root of the matter. Every action you take towards how you feel a society should be shaped comes from your view on human nature. And on whether you think human nature is malleable or naturally good, or whether you think that human nature is naturally selfish and therefore we need to build upon morals. But we realize that we need to improve on morals in a way of persuasion rather than force. Thank you folks so much. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be coming out with a lot more soon. Take care and God bless.